welcome to the 2023 version of Recycling Raindrops here in Hernando County. This, I am recording a live virtual rain barrel workshop. How one receives a rain barrel workshop in Hernando County is by pre-registering and attending a live workshop. If you happen to be listening to this as a recording, please understand it is an educational tool, but does not qualify you to receive a rain barrel. You would have to attend an actual live rain barrel workshop, either in person or virtual. The folks here today are attending virtually, and the Hernando County residents will receive their rain barrels. I am Lilly Browning. I work for Hernando County Utilities in the water department here in Hernando County with water conservation. There are two really good ways to reach me. I have two emails now. The old standard is LillyB at hernandocounty.us. That's Lilly with two L's in the middle at hernandocounty.us. Now there's another more generic email for Florida Friendly Landscaping, more generic but longer, Hernando County FFL at hernandocounty.us. Either one of those will get to me. I'm the only one who sees either one of those emails, so they're both good ways to contact me. What is Florida Friendly Landscaping, you may be asking? Well, it is a program developed by the University of Florida. It's 30 years old now. It's celebrating its 30th birthday this year. And the University of Florida put this program together as kind of Florida's answer to xeriscaping. Then they developed these 9 principles, in which principles 7, 8, and 9 recycle, reduce stormwater runoff, and protect the waterfront. That's where rain barrels really come in and play a big part in helping us follow all of these 9 principles. The rain barrel, that those of you who are getting rain barrels, this is what it looks like that you're going to receive. Of course, you're going to go home and put it all together, and I will describe the parts and pieces to you. If you could put in the chat when you would like to pick up your barrel, because you have 2 different choices. You may come tomorrow, Thursday the 17th, to Hernando County Utilities, and I can email you the address again if you don't know where it is, between 2 and 4. So let me know if you want to do that. To pick up your rain barrel, you'll just come in front of the building, and there's a classroom near the front. I'll give you directions how to do that. Or you are also invited to attend a in-person event on Friday, the 17th, at 10 in the morning at the East Hernando Library. That is in Ridge Manor. So if you're in Spring Hill, well, one of you's in High Point, one's in Spring Hill. It's a bit of a drive, so you got to keep that in mind. It's on the other side of the interstate in Ridge Manor, but there's going to be a compost bin and spring vegetable gardening workshop. That is entirely free, as are the compost bins for Hernando County residents. If that interests you, please mark that in the chat or email me this evening and say, oh, I'd like to go to the workshop on Friday at the East Hernando Library, and I'll pick up my barrel when I go there. Just let me know which one you want to do. This is the sizes of your barrels that you're going to get. So it's 2 feet wide, 2 feet in depth, 3 feet high. So if you decide you also want to get a compost bin, which is a little bit taller and a lot wider at the bottom than this barrel, you will need to bring a vehicle to fit both of those, but keep in mind that the barrel is going to slide into the compost bin. But you do need something other than a smart car or a Miata or something like that that's going to fit those items. And when you are getting a rain barrel from Hernando County Utilities, the sales are final. There are no returns available or refunds the way we buy them in bulk. We just don't have that capacity to do that. So once they're in your possession, we cannot offer refunds or exchanges. And for our Hernando County residents, since we are talking water and water conservation, here is your reminder that here in Hernando County, we are under 1 day a week watering restrictions. This is not a temporary thing. It has been this way for the better part of 12 years. It is not going to be changing. As far as, being less strict, it's not going to be changing. And the sentence I have on the bottom here, even if you have a private well, I think that's the biggest misconception in our county. People believing they have a private well, therefore they can water as much as they want. That is not true. We are all pulling from the same source. We are all pulling from the aquifer below us. And therefore, we are all under the same watering restrictions. Whether your private well powers water for your whole house use, like mine does, whether you have a private irrigation well, whether that irrigation well is taking water from a freshwater source or an above ground source, doesn't matter. We are all under 1 day a week watering. So pass that word. And part of something I want you to know, some news to know, is that code enforcement here in Hernando County has recently hired 2 new code enforcement officers who are water resource officers. Their entire job is to monitor watering restrictions, watering violations. That's their entire job. There's 2 of them. They split shifts, they work evenings, they work weekends. And I was speaking to code enforcement last week, and this is the way it goes. So you want to pass this word on to all your friends and neighbors. They also have easy access to all gated communities in evenings and weekends. If they catch you violating, there is no warning system with code enforcement. It is $100 fine. Your second time you are caught in the violation, it jumps to a $500 fine. The third time you are caught in a water violation, you are going before a special magistrate, which is a court-appointed lawyer to, a judge-appointed lawyer to oversee these types of violations. So it's pretty serious, so pass the word on. I know I'm preaching to the choir. Anybody who wants to have a rain barrel obviously, wants to save water, but pass the word on to your friends and neighbors. Part of what we do in distributing rain barrels is we try to reduce stormwater runoff. That is one of the principles of Florida-friendly landscaping. And why do we want to do that? Why do we care so much about stormwater runoff? Well, Florida's growing. We're losing a lot of those pervious surfaces, those aquifer recharge areas that allow water to, go through the ground back into the aquifer. And we're acquiring more impervious surfaces, including one that people don't think about a lot, which is roofs. So rain that comes off of roofs and picking up whatever, pollutants might be on the roof, through the yards, down the road, picking up all the pollutants it can find, nitrates being one of the big ones that causes pollution in our waterways. And then we end up with this big word right here. We end up with eutrophication. I know it's late in the evening and we don't want to deal with vocabulary words, but eutrophication basically just means excess nutrients in the waterways that impede natural ecosystem, usually nitrates and phosphates that get picked up. The natural algae and things like that in the water that is normally under control, just goes crazy with these excess nutrients, grows out of control, blocks out the sun, affects the underwater plants. As I was walking in here to give this class this evening, on the news, I heard them talking about seagrass. You know, seagrass is in major trouble in the Tampa Bay area. It's doing really well in Hernando County. It's doing amazingly well in Hernando County. Unfortunately, once you get further south and, you know, along the coast in the Tampa Bay itself, it's not doing well at all. So every little thing that we can do, 55 gallons at a time, you know, to help, it all builds up. Stormwater runoff, as I mentioned, I call it pollutants' favorite express train to the nearest waterway. So then I figured I would draw that express train to show you, you know, what it's taking to the nearest waterway. It's taking pathogens that it picks up along the way, those nutrients that I mentioned, debris, toxins, sediments, and also thermal stress. If you wonder what thermal stress might be, just think of that stormwater runoff traveling down a large, you know, parking lot with a Sam's Club and a Walmart and all this asphalt in August. That water's going to heat up, and sometimes by the time it reaches the waterways, if there's enough of it that has, you know, is really warm, it can actually change the temperature of that ecosystem, wreaking havoc, you know, in that water's ecosystem. When it rains, 1 inch of rainfall can produce 16 times more runoff by volume on a 1 acre parking lot than that same 1 inch of rainfall on a completely vegetated area of equal size. As I mentioned, we call those vegetative areas aquifer recharge areas. Green swamp, that's something that we Hernando Countyans share with Rick there in Polk County. That is a great aquifer recharge area, and even just a nice yard that takes in as much water as it gets. If it can take it in, or you save it to pour, you know, into your landscape beds later, the better off we are, and we can utilize our yard as aquifer recharge areas. Another thing is that with this stormwater, and, you know, for, you know, to have decent civilization, be able to drive and walk places, we need stormwater engineering to take the water away from our homes and businesses and off the streets. And, you know, so there are storm drainage systems, and at least here in Hernando County and most places, there is no filter of the storm water. And in fact, in some of the older cities, older towns where stormwater what still is mixed with wastewater, they're changing those systems, because what happens when there's an overflow? You know, we've seen it in St. Petersburg. I know it's happened to my daughter's small town in Pennsylvania, so they had to make the break between the two. There's no way to separate it out. If it overflows, it just goes into the, in my daughter's case, into a river. You know, in St. Pete, it goes into the bay. That's not something that we want. So to take that pressure off and allow the stormwater to flow naturally works well. So we are not dumping wastewater, you know, into the waterways. But on the other hand, we need then to do what we can to realize there's no filter at these storm drains. These pictures were made by in Alachua County. I guess the hashtag no filter was a TikTok thing for, you know, a very short time. But of course, in Alachua, the college kids took it to remind us that there's no filter at these storm drains. So we need to do whatever we can, whatever water nature gives us, let's keep it and stop it from becoming stormwater runoff, or reducing it as much as we can. Because when we talk about pollution, there are two very broad main sources of pollution: point source, That means we know where it came from. We can pinpoint where it came from. Piney Point here in Tampa Bay. We point at them. We know they had the breach. We know that's where the problem was. BP's oil spill years ago, we know it was them. We can point to them. But other sources include non-point sources. And there's just too many of them to point at and to even pinpoint where it's coming from. It is the everyday activities of everyday people like me and you know, built up to where it becomes a problem because there's so much of it going on. Point source means the source can be determined. Non-point source, like I said, the everyday activities of everyday people. It's impossible to determine exactly where all of it is coming from. And the EPA says 60% of the pollution in rivers in the US are from these non-point sources, including pet waste and all of our other, everyday activities. So what can we do about it? In our little piece of land that we have, what can we do to try and make a bit of a difference? If the everyday activities of everyday people are causing the non-point source pollution, then if each of us can change some habits and create less of that pollution, it also is going to it also is eventually going to have an impact. I'm a nature lover. Nature is not loving me very much right now. I'm having a toxic relationship with it, so you'll have to excuse my coughing. Spring is in the air. One of the biggest things you can do is to control runoff from leaving your property. What I want you to do is whatever water nature gives you, I want you to try and hoard it. And that's what you're going to be doing with your rain barrel, but there are other ways to do that. One of the ways is a Florida-friendly landscape that absorbs runoff and allows it to filter back into the soil. Plants absorb water. It's what they do. Mulch absorbs water nicely. Trees are fantastic water absorbers. The more plants you have, the more is going to be absorbed and sent back into, the water cycle without causing any pollution problems. You can choose drought-tolerant plants that don't need supplemental irrigation so that we're not adding more water that could become runoff than we need to. And Florida-friendly landscaping is not anti-turf. The very first principle of Florida-friendly landscaping is right plant, right place. And so the way we look at it is there are some situations where turf does just fine. The way I look at it is if it's growing there, fine, and you are not adding, extra inputs of water, fertilizer, insecticides. I have what I call a freedom lawn. It's just mow and don't worry about it. Green, not now. Through a good part of the season, green, mowable, looks decent enough at 30 miles an hour as you go by. Lots of weeds, that's attracting more pollinators. Works out for me. But, if you have an area where grass grows well, a diversity of more native plants is always better to attract, to have a healthier ecosystem. But if you have areas where the kids play, or your dogs run, or you just want, like an open-sided area, and if turf does fairly well there without a lot of inputs, turf can be fine. It can also help absorb some of that water as well. If it's an area that it just refuses to grow, I just say try something else. See what wants to grow there, rather than fighting to make turf grow there. Mulch, it's another one of our principles. And if you maintain a 2 to 3 inch layer, not more, in your plant beds, that reduces erosion. helps retain that soil moisture. I just did an entire class on Much Ado about mulch, and I'll show you at the end Hernando County's YouTube channel. You can go back and find that class as well. If you do use your automatic irrigation system, when I showed you the watering rules, and I neglected to point out that you are allowed to water before 8 a.m. or after 6 p.m. The word I just said there was or, not and. You don't get to double dip there. So that's when you're allowed to water, and we gave those two opportunities because we have 180,000 people in the county, you know, and stretching it over 5 days helps put less pressure on the aquifer, but also giving you 2 different times will help. What's best, though, for the health of your lawn and what Florida-friendly landscaping would recommend is that as close to that 8 a.m. time frame as possible that you will be wrapping up. Better to do it early in the morning so you don't have fungus all night, possibly developing, you know, in your lawn. And also early in the morning is usually on a normal day, the least amount of wind. And of course, you won't have evaporation happening early in the morning. Or the best option is to install a landscape that thrives on natural rainfall alone. And that's a whole other class, but there are many ways to do that too. And reduce those impervious surfaces that you have. Some of them we can't do anything about, but if you happen to be in the market to be replacing your driveway, think about pavers or bricks that allow more water to soak through. If you are creating a landscape in your backyard, if you're having walkways, think about gravel, even bricks again, mulch, shell, you know, something that is not a hard surface, or I mean, flagstone will let water go, you know, between the rocks, but nothing that's going to create that runoff like concrete, asphalt. Have as many surfaces that allow the water to go through as possible. So now let's talk about, you know, rainwater and your plants. We've seen they have a very happy relationship. You water your plants with your hose, and I always say your plants kind of do what your teenage son might do to recognize your presence. That little tiny bit of a nod, like, hey, that's what your plants might do if you water it with a hose. If it rains on them, they're just about out there dancing. You can really just tell the difference. Much happier plants. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One is there is a trace amount of nitrogen in the atmosphere that the raindrops pick up from lightning and you know, bring to the plants, as well as the pH. The pH that rainwater brings to that plant at that moment is just ideal for it. And while it's going, you know, through its system, why it looks so happy at that time. So when we get our rain barrels, what are the things that we can do with our rain barrels? Well, the most likely thing is you're going to be watering bedding plants in your landscape beds, trees, shrubs, annuals, containerized plants, things such as that. It's not, you know, it's not going to water your lawn. Even if you try to put a little pump on it or something, it's just not going to be much good for that. Another thing that we have found during different storms here in Florida, those who may not be on a municipal system, who might be on a well and the electricity is out, it might suddenly dawn on you, I've got 55 gallons of water sitting right out there. I can use that to flush my toilet. That's fine to use it for that. Don't drink it. It's not drinking water. There have been several people over the years that have gone through these programs who had the intention of possibly creating drinking water out of this rainwater. All I can tell you is I don't promote, you know, a drinking water system from these rain barrels. As you receive them, they are not a drinking water system. They are a holding water system for watering plants. Having said that and talking about safety, I know many people for many years, say they've always used their rain barrels to water their vegetable gardens. Well, I just want to point out a few things about that, and I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying there's some caution needs to be taken regarding that. And yes, it rains on your vegetable garden. It rains directly on your vegetable garden. That is true. Well, I'm not worried about the rainwater. What we are worried about is your roof that the rainwater might be coming off of when you are collecting it. So the University of Florida, this is a quote from Dr. Yilin Zhang, a specialist at the University of Florida. She says that the University of Florida and other institutions agree that rainwater collected off of a roof structure should not be used to irrigate edible plants without treating or purifying the water first. Not as hard as it sounds, don't worry. Generally speaking, since this water has run off your roof, it may be best to stick to using it to water non-edible plants. So what happens on your roof? Lots of critters up there. What do critters do? Yep, lots of critters pooping on your roof up there. And also your roof itself probably is some kind of asphalt roof, maybe not. But so you have heavy metals. A lot of the roofs have these copper strips to avoid moss and fungus. So again, a heavy metal kind of issue. So it's just something to consider. So what do we do about that if you're really thinking I wanted to use it for my vegetable garden? One thing you can do is not have it come off your roof. Put your rain barrel just right by your vegetable garden out in the open. Will take a lot longer to fill up that way. What fills them up quickly is that direct conveyance, usually using a roof and a downspout or a valley or something like that. So here's what you can do to use it on edible plants. Avoid it if you have an old tar and gravel roof, an old asbestos shingle roof, treated shingle roof, a copper roof, or if you have a zinc anti-moss strip. And remember, some gutters could be coated with lead-based paint if it's an older house. So what you want to do is clean the barrel with a 3% bleach solution before collecting the water. Household unscented bleach with a 5 to 6% chlorine solution can be added at a rate of 1/8 of a teaspoon. That's just 8 drops of bleach per gallon of water. So this is a 55-gallon barrel, 1 ounce, or 2 tablespoons of bleach a month. If it's in summer, raining a lot, do that bi-monthly. If we've had a lull in rain, you're going to wait. And then it rains. Don't use that. Use that on your ornamentals and wait for the second flush. But after you treat it with the bleach, wait 24 hours to use the water on the garden after putting in the bleach. So use that little bit of bleach in there. Irrigate at sunrise on your vegetables if you're going to use the rain barrels for it. Water at the roots. Don't just pour it over the leaves. That's just what we say in general for any kind of plants. And as I just said, if it hasn't rained in a while and all that stuff is coming off the roof, even if you have bleached it, use that first flush just for your ornamentals. Treat it again, and then you can use, if it rains again in a short amount of time, then you can go ahead and use that on those. How much rain can we get? Now, this is assuming we're going to take it off of our roof, so we have that direct conveyance. So about 2,000 square feet roof can collect about 1,000 gallons of water, depending on, the downspout and how much area of the roof it's getting it from. So basically, a regular summer rainstorm can fill up a 50 to 55 gallon barrel pretty quickly. We've seen how fast and hard it rains in the summer. Those can fill up pretty quickly. So where do you want to put it? Next to your house or a building is the fastest way to fill it, to have that downspout or a deep valley in your house where water just pours down there anyway. That's the best place to do it. And this is just the voice of experience I put in there, close to the area you want to water, so that you are more likely to utilize it. The higher you put those rain barrels up within the limits of safety, the more they're going to flow, so elevation equals gravity and flow. So the water's going to come out better the higher you have it. The barrels that you get, the hole is drilled for the spigot about maybe a foot or around there, maybe a little less, up. So you have good room for a watering can or a bucket under it, but if you put it up a little bit from there, you'll have even better flow. And speaking of flow, I have found this actually works a lot better than I thought it would. This was last spring, when I cleared up my wildflower bed and decided to start watering it a little bit. Just had the soaker hose right connected to the rain barrel, and it put out enough pressure, as you can see, to get good results from the soaker hose. Just right where you would like it to be dripping some water there. I will tell you, don't just set that and then walk away, or you'll have an empty rain barrel probably, within a fairly short amount of time. So it's a good idea, but don't just put it on unless you purposefully, want to drain your rain barrel. When it comes to these rain barrels that you're going to receive, the foundation that you put it on is very crucial to the success of these rain barrels. They have kind of a square kind of bottom, and they need to be supported fully. The platform must exceed the diameter of the bottom of the rain barrel, and we have found that a 24 by 24 inch patio stone or some kind of foundation that is 2 by 2 feet or larger exceeds the diameter of the bottom of the barrel, will help support it. This one, this was one that was gotten from us, and it looks like overkill here, but it's a very solid system, and that barrel holds up very well. This looks solid. We've got a nice paver, we've got these cinder blocks, another paver. I mean, that looks like a nice solid foundation, but you can tell what I'm pointing at with these arrows that I put here, where the problem is. We have hangover with this rain barrel, and it is not fully supporting the weight of that rain barrel full of water. So this poor rain barrel, suffered some problems because of that. So we want you to remember to just say no. Just say no to hangovers when it comes to your rain barrels, or they may just crack under the stress, which is what happened with this poor guy. When we're talking about platforms, let's look at some of these platforms that are out there and discuss whether or not they'd be good rain barrel platforms. This one over here, nice cinder blocks, looks like a good platform. I'm pointing this one out though, because it is similar to one that a couple that I spoke to. They had to come back for another rain barrel because they made a platform similar to this. The problem is they put the rain barrel on the holes of the cinder blocks, thus creating voids under, it wasn't fully supporting the rain barrel. Whereas in other types of construction, you're told that the strength is in the holy part of the cinder blocks for as far as supporting your rain barrel goes, you need to put it on the flat part of those cinder blocks. Also, this is a very pretty platform, but I would be concerned with those voids under there as well. And are these good platforms for the rain barrels? Well, the one on the right is taken right from the Rain Barrel's website. So yes, it is doing pretty well. And you can see it's pretty low, just a nice patio stone on some gravel. And they have, for the overflow hose, a nice platform so you don't cause ruts there. This one was by one of the people who took one of the classes. She sent me the photo later. She happens to have a friend in the air conditioning business who gave her this wonderful platform, which certainly supports the rain barrel very well. Why are we so concerned with that rain barrel being supported? Let's do a little bit of math. Water's 8.33 pounds per gallon times 55 gallons plus the 17 pounds that the barrel weighs by itself. You have 475.15 pounds. So that is, just so you know, and can relate, 3 beer kegs are only 450 pounds. So it weighs more than 3 beer kegs and needs to be very, very well supported. How long is your barrel going to last after you receive it? That depends. It depends on, many things: maintenance, weather, placement of it, the platform that it's on, if it has an incident with lawn equipment, how much sun exposure it has. It's plastic. We're in Florida. It's in the sun. Also, how much it's moved around can affect how long it lasts as well. If you have a barrel that's no longer functioning as a barrel, there are several things you can do with it. I had one that wasn't functioning anymore. I just flipped it over and made it into a bird, put a bird feeder on top of it. You can put tools in it. You get really creative. You can make it into, containers for vegetable gardens. That's where your vegetable gardening can come in. What about mosquitoes? Well, there are mosquitoes in your gutters. There could be some mosquitoes around your rain barrels. We work very closely with Hernando County Mosquito Control. And they've always told me that there is no, they've never had a call that is related back to a functioning rain barrel with a lid installed properly. If you are concerned about it, you can get items from a big box store called mosquito dunks here. They're made of a natural bacteria that the larvae eat and never grow up into becoming mosquitoes, and you can break those up and put them in there. Some people even put a couple tablespoons of vegetable oil every so often, or spray Pam on the top, take the lid off and do that. Those help with that. When you walk by your rain barrel once a week or so, it's going to be full of leaves and roof granules. With a gloved hand or so, wipe that off and make sure that's not holding water there as well. If you are interested in more than one barrel for the Hernando County residents, you are allowed to get 4 in our program. You do have to attend a workshop for every barrel, that you receive. Only the first one do you get your credit from Hernando County Utilities if you are a customer here. Only the first one do you get the credit, the $30 credit on your water bill. All the others will be the full price of $65. And there are various ways that people have connected them together to have, a multi-barrel system. As far as safety goes, again, don't drink that water. Don't allow pets to drink the water. Don't touch your eyes or your mouth while handling the rain barrel. Drain and clean that barrel about once a year. Just drain it out and clean it out, either with bleach or vinegar or just good elbow grease. And wash your hands again after handling the barrel. So just remember that the platform must exceed the diameter of the bottom of the barrel must be a good, strong platform. Drain and clean it annually. Wash your hands after handling it. And again, as I keep saying, don't drink that water. This is John. He used to have my job years ago, but not after that day that he drank that water. We just haven't seen him since then. I do have other rain barrel workshops coming up. As I mentioned, you're welcome to join us Friday for a vegetable and compost bin workshop. And there's another rain barrel workshop Friday, March 10th. It'll be an in-person one at a park here in town. And we'll have another virtual one on April 20th. So if you yourself or anyone you know is interested. And I have Zoom classes and library classes pretty much continually. These are just the ones that are coming up that are non-rain barrel related. If you have an interest in that as well. And on April 22nd, we're having a big event, an Earth Day event at the Master Gardener Nursery here in Hernando County. It'll be from 9 until noon. So it'll be a great thing to come out. Those who attend the virtual rain barrel workshop on April 20th come to this event to pick up their rain barrels, and there'll be lots of other fun things going on at that event. As I mentioned, you can't really see it well here. We do have Hernando County Government. If you go to YouTube and look up Hernando County Government, I have a playlist, Florida Friendly Landscaping, where you can watch hundreds, about 104 different videos with more information just like this. And again, here is my email, LillyB@hernandocounty.us, if you have any questions. And thank you, and I hope you enjoy your rain barrel. And we're going to turn the recording off now for those who are listening via recording. Thank you very much.